Hey, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Joe Delara, and I am joined by our good friend, Andrew Watts. This show is brought to you by Rithmm. Rithmm is the #1 AI betting tool in the market. They've got the player prop projections. They have modeling for the sides, totals, whatever you need, including some of those hit rate charts. But let's get into the picks because that's what you really want to hear from. But first, Andrew, how you doing today, brother?
Doing great, man. Excited for the first episode of Coast to Coast. Excited to break down the slate, talk some news with you in the throughout the NBA. We had a couple things happen today of note, but yeah, just excited to kick this off on a beautiful Wednesday.
Yeah, it's nice to be around the water cooler. I think sometimes we got to sit back and take a look at what some of the things going on in the league are. And obviously, right now, the biggest part of the show or the biggest news right now is this Jimmy Butler trade rumor. And he just got suspended now for 2 games because he missed the team flight or whatever. He said he was going to meet up with the team, whatever the situation is. But now you see the Phoenix Suns made a trade. And I saw this one meme, and it was like, the Suns saying they have 3 first-round picks instead of 1 first-round pick, and it was just 1 slice of pizza, like cut up into 3 little mini Chuck E. Cheese slices, like you get at a kid's party. And that was the dad coming through, right? But so you like it's like it was like a nothing, right? What do you think about the Jimmy Butler trade rumors? Like, obviously, Miami needs to do something with him, or do they have to do something with him?
I mean, technically, no, they can do whatever they want, but I mean, it would make sense for them, I think, yeah, to try to move him and get something of value. I mean, they seem to just be suspending him, and when he is playing, he's kind of just dogging it out there. I mean, for someone who gets such a rep for his motor and his competitive energy, it's like he's literally just getting cardio out there at this point, right? I mean, he's just like, I mean, I remember there was that one game where he just like, Kobe didn't take a shot the whole game or whatever to make a point. He's not quite doing that, but yeah, I mean, it would make sense for Miami to do something with him and get something in return. But I mean, I don't know what that would look like. I mean, obviously, we've heard talks of Bradley Beal. I heard Bradley Beal they don't want Bradley Beal in Miami. I've heard rumors of that. So it's looking like, Shams mentioned a couple other teams getting involved, hence why they broke that 1 first rounder into 3 to just kind of create, at least spread their assets a little thinner and create more assets out of the 1. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it does feel like he's headed to Phoenix, but
he's on the way out, I think. I think it's unfortunate. I feel like he had a good time in Miami in terms of some of the success that they had. I felt like they overachieved at different times. Either way, it's tough to lose somebody that's like a franchise cornerstone that I think thought he was going to spend the rest of his career in Miami. It does create an interesting situation overall. Another thing today, we were going to have an extra game. We were going to have the Milwaukee Bucks versus the New Orleans Pelicans. That game got canceled due to weather. It's really actually a little bit interesting because the Bucks are actually in New Orleans. They just are canceling the game because of the conditions of the road. They don't want fans trying to get to the arena. The problem is now so this game got canceled. Milwaukee plays Miami tomorrow in Milwaukee, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get down the tarmac. So they're saying this is a definite problem for Milwaukee, and even if they are able to get there, they're going to be in kind of a bad situation spot tomorrow. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And obviously one of the other major things that came out, and we'll touch on this a little bit more when we get to the game, but Derek Lively is going to be out for the next couple of months with a foot injury after breaking his foot. So we'll definitely have to touch on that in a bit. But I know enough water cooler talk, right? Let's kind of get into the slate review right now. So the first game that we have coming up is the Detroit Pistons versus the Atlanta Hawks. This sets up as a pretty good game overall. It's a pretty tight spread, but I know that, Andrew, you have some thoughts on it off the bat, and you were pretty convincing in terms of what you liked in this game.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame to just like right off the bat do like my favorite best bet of the night. But I feel like we're peaking a little early or something. But I love the Pistons here. They opened, I think +2 or something like that. It's moved to +4, but mostly that's been a result of some injury news. We had Trey and Jalen Johnson were questionable and probable. I think not whatever the opposite of respectively is, because Trey was probable, Jalen Johnson questionable. But I love the Pistons here, man. They've been a really fun team to watch. Cade has been having a great breakout season, but and it's kind of a bad spot for the Hawks, right? They have been on the road pretty much since December. They've had one home game that was on January 14th. Before that, their most recent home game was December 28th against Miami. After that Miami game on the 28th, they went the next day to Toronto, then Denver, LA for a back-to-back, Utah, Phoenix, back home, then Chicago, Boston, most recently New York, and now they're back home to play the Pistons. And I just think this is a great letdown spot for the Hawks. The Pistons are a team that you want in this type of spot. They're as a road dog. They are, let me pull up my number here. They're 12-5 as a road dog against the spread. While Hawks, this is, again, where you want to fade them. At home, they're 3-7 against the spread as a home favorite. So this just feels like a great spot to get value with the Pistons. And I sprinkled a little on the money line as well, but this was a 1.5 unit play for me on the spread.
Hey, it's nice to start off with a big play. It's nice to start off with an angle that we like. And, as most of you guys know, I'm a player prop guy. For me, I like Ausar Thompson over 4.5 rebounds. So if you listen to the Cash That podcast, which is the show that I run, it's sponsored by Rithmm. We gave this out last night, 4.5 at -135. It's since bumped to either heavily juiced on the 4.5 or we're seeing plus money at the 5.5. I'm okay with either. I think this is an opportunity where you could take either. I would take the juice up to -160, -165. Otherwise, I'd want plus money on the 5.5. But Thompson has been awesome on this line, right? Number one, it's a pace-up spot for the Pistons, as the Atlanta Hawks play at the third fastest pace in the league. But the other thing that I like here is that Atlanta plays pretty wing-heavy overall, and I think it aligns with Ausar's skill set. It's going to allow him to be on the floor. So he's averaging 4.9 rebounds per game this season, but over his last 10, he's at 5.9, and he's recorded 5+ in 7 of 10. So to me, I think this is a great opportunity for him against this Pistons squad, or against this Hawks squad, who actually inserted Onyeka Okongwu into the starting lineup last game. So I think that makes them even a little bit more switchy. It's going to keep players a little bit more out of position. I think this is a great spot for Ausar Thompson. What do you think about that? What do you think about the Onyeka Okongwu move potentially into the starting lineup again?
Yeah, I think it's a great look. I love the Okongwu move for my fantasy team. I've been holding on to him for way too long, so now he's finally getting that.
He'll finally do something.
Yeah. But I want to just real quick. I want to mention. You mentioned the pace up. This is there's a trend that I came across, which has to do with transition frequency and transition defense. Teams that are, so I kind of have this, marked teams top 8 in transition frequency, meaning they get out and run a lot. Now, whether or not they're efficient in that run is not really relevant, honestly. They do really well against the spread against teams in the bottom 10 in transition defense. That actually applies to both the Pistons and the Hawks in this scenario. So what I like is, again, like you mentioned, pace up spot, and I think the over could be a good look. I'm not going to play it just because I'm more of a sides guy, but I think that plays well into your over 4.5/over 5.5 for Ausar rebounds.
All right, awesome. So let's move on to the next game here. We have the Phoenix Suns versus the Brooklyn Nets. Nets are on a back-to-back. They lost a tough one to the New York Knicks yesterday. The Phoenix Suns are, amidst all the trade rumors, they are trying to do whatever they can to either move off of Bradley Beal, bring in Jimmy Butler, what have you. But they did make a trade recently in grabbing Nick Richards from the Charlotte Hornets. And that sets up for one of my favorite props today. I like Nick Richards over 17.5 points plus rebounds. And I also like him to double-double. I think last game, we're getting a little bit of a buy low spot. He had a tough game last time out against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he has been somebody that is consistently hitting this number when he's given opportunity. And last year, when he played the Brooklyn Nets, he did get extended run and played 31 minutes in a matchup with Nick Claxton, got a double-double. So I do like the potential here for him. I do see a lot of upside. And it also ties into the other fact that the Suns don't have Yusuf Nurkic. They don't have Bradley Beal. And I think there's going to be a little bit more opportunity for him to kind of start carving out a little bit more of a role for himself at the center position. What do you think about the Nets here in this spot, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, they're one of those, they're tank watch 2.0 at this point, right? I mean, they gave our Knicks, our New York Knickerbockers. I got the roommate's T-shirt on. I don't know if you can see it, yeah. But they gave our Knicks a little bit of a scare last night, man. That was little surprising, but they had Cam Johnson in, D'Angelo Russell in, and I believe Ben Simmons did not play. But
no, he's not again today, yeah.
But I mean, all those guys are out for this game. I saw a tweet today that was like an underdog or whatever like update, and it was literally like, who is playing for the Nets? Like, it was easier just to say who actually is playing than to who everybody that's out. Because all those guys are sitting. I think if you want to fade the Nets, I very much co-sign that. I'm looking at a slightly different way to fade them. I'm fading specifically their offense. I like the team total under here. 102 I got a little while ago. It's still 101.5. That's more than good. I mean, that's a low number, but they have not cleared this number. They've cleared this number once in their last 11 home games. So and I project it into let me bring it up real quick. I project this closer to, I mean, it's going to be a silly number. You're going to laugh when I tell you. Yeah, I project them at 94.3 points. I don't think they break 100. I mean, they've been averaging, like, I think at home, like 97 points per game, and that's with those guys in for some of those games. They just cannot score. They're not trying to score. Phoenix defense isn't great, but pace is low enough and the offense is bad enough that this is a good look here, I think.
Yeah, I see we got this message here from Explode. Nets got a Pro AM roster today. Yeah, that's for real. And I want to take advantage of this a little bit. One player that I think might get run for Phoenix regardless is, I like Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones has been diming whenever Bradley Beal is out. So I like his assist ladder, 5.5, 8, 10, whatever. I was able to build double-double. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to always check and cross-reference the price for double-double versus the price for 10 and 10. When you can build it in a same game parlay, you get plus 2080 on FanDuel right now for that parlay instead of like plus 900 for the double-double. So definitely always check that out. And if you want to get really crazy, if you want to parlay, if you build it out 10 and 10 for Tyus Jones and 10 and 10 for Nick Richards, FanDuel's got a 30% boost right now. It's 103-1 for the two of them to get double doubles in this game, which I think is totally possible against this Swiss cheese Nets defense. So definitely an angle that I wanted to capitalize on.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, Joe is the triple-double parlay king over here. I don't know, what was it, 2 seasons ago? What was that?
Yeah, that was fun.
Nikola Jokic, LaMelo Ball, and who was the third one?
LeBron. And the best part was, honestly, that Jokic cashed in like the second quarter. Basically, It was insane. It was like one of those. So that was definitely a lot of fun. But let's move on to the next game here. We've got the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks just got hit, obviously, with the Derek Lively injury news, and I think that's obviously problematic for Dallas moving forward. They've been kind of struggling lately overall. What do you think about this spot for Minnesota? Dallas has ruled out a ton of players for this game. Is this just a game that Minnesota is going to roll?
Yeah, I think so. this is a number that's crawled from, I think what was it, a 1.5 or something. It's 3.5, 4, I think now for the Timberwolves. I just think that Dallas is not really the team that they have been in the past, right? Like, no Luka, Lively is massive to what they do. They did get Grimes back, but I mean, with no one else out, he's kind of one of those guys that is really an excellent guy to have when you kind of have the core, superstars around him. Former Nick, we know all about Quentin Grimes over here on Coast to Coast, but I think this is a great spot for the Wolves. I think Dallas is just not at their level. At this point, I think there's still value at the 3.5, whatever it is. I would go, I did like it more at 2. But given the Lively news, that's definitely makes this still viable at 3.5. I like the Wolves.
No, I like that cap, and I like Anthony Edwards to have a big game here too. Prop lines at 25.5, 26.5. It's kind of been bouncing around a little bit. I'm sure after the show, as soon as we talk about it, it's going to be at 26.5. But look, a part of why I like this is he's got 28 points in 5 straight games. We don't need 28. We need either 26 or 27. The other thing is, I think schematically, this is an interesting game for Anthony Edwards. So Dallas, they do a decent job of limiting threes, but a lot of it has to do with the way that they protect the wings, not as much on some of these pull-up opportunities, which is what Anthony Edwards is taking primarily, or is kind of coming off screens, whatever. The other thing is Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford both tend to play in a drop. I think that Lively is a little bit better in terms of his switchability. He's a little bit better coming up out of that drop, but I think that we're going to see a pretty significant drop defense here. And as a result, I think this is going to be a good spot for Anthony Edwards to really kind of get up some more threes. When Ant's making threes, he's generally scoring a lot more points. I was looking at the threes here. It's at 3.5. It's a spot that I considered, but for me, a lot of times with the threes, they're obviously a little bit more volatile. They're a little bit harder to predict. So I went with the points instead at 25.5 or 26.5 for this game. Looking at the next game, which I think is honestly maybe the crown jewel of the slate, is the...
Wait, sorry, Joe. Real quick, I want to just touch, because what do you think of Gafford in this game? I know you're the prop guy, and I don't want to drag us down too much with this, but what do you think of how Lively?
His rebounds are probably going to be okay. I think the problem is that it's a tough matchup against Rudy Gobert either way. I think that if anything, I would maybe look more at Gobert instead, under the idea that they probably have to keep him in. Gafford is generally staying around the rim. It probably keeps it a little bit easier for Gobert to stay closer to the rim, and he's not as explosive in a way as Lively. So I do think there might be a little bit less foul trouble risk for Gobert in this game. But I don't mind Gafford if you kind of wanted to go with a Gafford prop here. So
okay, cool.
I do want to turn to the next game, though. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Houston Rockets, which puts two of the NBA's best teams against each other here. I'm actually going to be talking about this game more. I'm going to be live with the NBA on their bet stream, so you can watch that in the NBA app as well and get some of the picks between myself and Matt Moore, along with the other people at DraftKings, and it's going to be a pretty good show. So that's one way if you want to watch the game along with us. But Watts, what do you like in this game? Cleveland has been favored most of the day. They went to -3 at one point, and it's kind of coming back. It looks like it's gotten bet down a little bit. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I liked it. I got it at +3. I still like it at +2 for the Rockets. I think this is a good spot for the Rockets. They're not home dogs often, and honestly, I get why they are, but I think that without Mobley, this could present some issues for the Cavaliers. Just the Rockets' length and physicality could present some issues for the Cavs. They have great combinations of, their 3-man lineups with their big four. So Mobley, Allen, Garland, and Mitchell all do really well, both offensively and defensively. But I think the Rockets are kind of like the perfect antidote to what they do, and just, being bothered by that length and physicality for the Rockets. I think being defense being a calling card for the Rockets. I think I also, in addition to the points, I also like a team total under for the Cavs, just a little too high at 116. This is, I'm trying to look, I do projections. I'm trying to see maybe Rithmm has a thought on this. I have a couple models going. I don't think, let's see, Rithmm is saying, okay, it's all on overs, but none of them are green light overs. So kind of a proceed with caution on the over. But look, I mean, this game could still, even if that is the case, this game could go over if the Rockets are hitting threes and scoring. But where are you at with this game? I mean, you're going to be talking about it pretty soon.
I'm with you. I like the Rockets in the spot. I think that the 3 points, I like getting it at a full possession, but I think you're okay at +2 as well. I definitely like grabbing the points with the home dog in this instance, but the player prop that I'm looking at is I like Tari Eason over 16.5 points plus rebounds. There's a pretty heavily juiced 15.5 out at MGM, but I would either take the 16.5. FanDuel looks like the best line, -120, or even Caesars says -106 at 17.5. But given that distribution, I would prefer the FanDuel line. The biggest thing has been Tari Eason when he plays without Jabari Smith. He's consistently seeing minutes in the mid-20s, and he's hit this now in 6 of 7 games without Jabari this season, and actually dating into last season a little bit too. The biggest thing is that he only got 12 PR against the Detroit Pistons the other day. So that's the most recent game. And I think of this as a little bit of a buy low opportunity. He's only 2 for 7 from the field. And honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that on the other side of this, you had guys like Asar Thompson who can kind of help defend somebody like Tari Eason. So it's one of the tougher defenders that you could run into in the league. Now, for Cleveland, you don't have Evan Mobley. And that I think, and you don't have Isaac Okoro. So I think this is going to open up a little bit of a soft spot in that Cleveland defense where he can not only grab points, but he can also rack up some rebounds. So I like Tari Eason over 16.5 points plus rebounds in this game. The next game that we're looking at is we have the Charlotte Hornets versus the Memphis Grizzlies. And I know you just have a little bit of a lean on this game, and then I'll get into the player prop that I like, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely lean towards the Hornets catching 12. They've actually won the last 2 meetings. Obviously, don't even actually listen to that because those both were last season. But they're on a little bit of a streak here. They've won 3 in a row and 3 of their last 4. Memphis had a tough time putting away. Was it Dallas last game? I think. I just think that the way Charlotte's playing, again, you want to kind of back them on the road. I would lean towards the points with Charlotte here, but I haven't made a play on this game besides the one that you have, which you should talk about.
Yeah, I like Mark Williams over 15.5 points. If it's 16.5, that's okay too. The biggest thing for me is that he's immediately seeing extended run without Nick Richards after Nick Richards got traded, and we talked about him before, from the Charlotte Hornets. He just had 13 points against Dallas last game, so he missed this prop where it was set at the exact same line. The problem in that game was he wound up getting his minutes, but he had 4 fouls in the first half. Like, he barely played in the first half. So I think he easily would have gone over this line. I'm projecting him closer to 20 points actually for this spot. In the games that he's played 25 or more minutes, which he should see tonight, he's hit this in 75% of games this season. So really love the spot for him. I think this is an excellent opportunity in this matchup. I know that they have Zach Edey. I know that they have Jaren Jackson Jr. Look, Zach Edey's a rookie. Still has a little bit of mobility. He's still a little slow. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. is not somebody that necessarily plays centers 1-to-1. They actually are trying to avoid doing that. And that's part of why they drafted Zach Edey. His best skills are used a little bit more as a floater, as a roamer, and he's not going to be lining up against Mark Williams 1-to-1. So I like Mark Williams in the spot for the Charlotte Hornets.
That you're hitting both ends of this Nick Richards trade.
It's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. It had to be done. So obviously the Bucks and the Pelicans got weathered out. But we are looking at the Jazz versus the Thunder. The Thunder are massive, massive favorites. Are you willing to lay that 17 or 16?
Yeah, I did. I actually laid the 17.5, and now that after Markkanen and Collins and Sexton got ruled in, that moved to 16.5. I still feel okay with it. I honestly at this point it's a stay away but I want to talk about something that's going on with the Jazz real quick, and then we can move on. But or go to your pick if you got a good one. But basically, what the Jazz are doing is a slightly sneakier version of tanking, where they've got Markkanen, Collins, all of their good players, Kessler. They've got them as pretty much questionable, probable in every single day, every single game day. And then what they do is, oh man, they're playing a bad team. Yeah, just too injured, can't go today. Then when they play the good teams like OKC, they go, you know what, I'm feeling better. Let's give it a go. And then they get annihilated anyways. So it's kind of a clever way of like tanking without being quite so blatant about it. And that was my mistake when I took the Thunder. I should have kind of keyed into that a little more. If you're gonna fade the Jazz, make sure they're playing. Make sure you kind of keep that in mind. If they're playing a bad team, understand that Markkanen and them are probably not going to go. And if they're playing a good team, they probably will. So wait for them to get officially ruled in before you fade them. That would be my 2 cents. But yeah, I honestly at this point would stay away. Markkanen and Kessler and them, they are pretty good and they can be frisky, but OKC is a wagon. So it's a little bit of a tough one. I feel okay with the ticket I have, but I wouldn't necessarily get involved.
That's fair enough. And look, I like OKC in the spot generally, but I like Shea to really start the game off hot. I like him over 10.5 first quarter points. He generally plays the entire first quarter. That's his normal rotation, really sets the table for the rest of the game. And when he plays the entire first quarter, he's averaging 10.4 points over his last 20 games. So we're seeing him basically right at this number, and that's not against this Utah Jazz team that has one of the worst defenses in the league. He's been cooking of late. The one thing is he's only scored 6 first quarter points against Utah back in December. But the thing that I think is promising is he took 9 shots, which is actually 2 more attempts, field goal attempts than he normally takes in the first quarter. So this is a great matchup for him. He's going to get even more usage if Jalen Williams actually does sit. Not sure 100% if that's going to happen, but I do like him to go over 10.5 first quarter points in this game. The next game that we have is we got a little bit of a battle of California between the Warriors and the Kings. The Kings have been awesome since firing Mike Brown, which I kind of disagreed with a little bit at the time. But obviously, I mean, hey, it's kind of one of those situations where people are like, well, like the results, even if the process isn't right, but the results, right? So what do you have a thought on this game? The Kings are 7-point favorites here at home against the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of so my own personal projections. I do projections. I do like my own models, but then I also use Rithmm models to build out maybe some of the things that I don't kind of incorporate as much into my own. But in my personal model, and in actually 2 of my 3 Rithmm models, I have value on the Warriors at +7, 7.5. But just watching the games and just kind of as a basketball viewer, I don't really want to get involved. It's kind of where I don't want to fade the Kings, and I don't necessarily want to bet on the Warriors right now. They do have the double-digit in-season revenge, but it's one of those where, look, if they cover, then God bless, good for you. I do, I lean that way. Like I said, it is that Bay Area adjacent, Northern California rivals. But yeah, I just don't, without Draymond and Podziemski and Kuminga, I just don't really need to get involved in this game in that respect.
No, I think that's totally fair. I don't really have anything from this game. I think if I had to pick something, I would look at Sabonis points. I think that it's been a little bit of a tougher matchup for the Golden State Warriors to defend him. And without Draymond Green, I think that definitely impacts some of their size, some of their ability to match up with him as well too. Finally, we've got the game that you're going to. We've got the Celtics versus the Clippers. Are you sitting on the wall?
Honestly, I don't even know, man. I should know. I should probably know that. But yeah, I don't know. My friend got the tickets. We're going down for his birthday. He's a big Celtics fan, so I'm not sure, honestly. I'll let you guys know. I'll follow me on Twitter at NBA Watts. I'll post some pictures of the game. I'll post pictures from the seats. I hear Intuit is a pretty cool spot. From what I've heard.
No, we're gonna have to get the stadium review, and we'll get it. We'll do it next week on the show. Do you have a lean on the game? Because I like the Celtics. I grabbed it at 9.5 a little bit earlier. What are you thinking?
I mean, I definitely that would be the side I'd be looking to. This line tells me that Harden probably isn't playing, unfortunately for me and my viewing of this game purposes. And if he is not playing, then I definitely my edge is on the Celtics. I make it about -13 for the Celtics. Not quite enough of an edge to get me involved with any confidence, but considering I'm going to the game, I might we'll see. Check me out. I post a lot of my plays in the Action app, and you at NBA Watts as well. So if you want to see what I'm riding on for this game. That it's probably Celtics or nothing, depending on the injury report. But yeah, I like where your head's at. With 9.5 is beautiful. I would love that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It opened, I think, at like 6. So yeah. I feel like I missed the good number, but I think that's something that people even need to consider. Sometimes when the line moves, like just because you missed out, and I've talked about this before, it's like sometimes just because you miss out on the best number doesn't mean that you're still not getting a good number. And I think that's super, super important for people to remember, something to consider. And I think that makes it okay. So it's like, even if you're tailing us and you're like, man, like I wish I got like 10 cents better on this. It's tough because sometimes you'll leave a little bit of meat on the table. I like a player prop here. If you want something early, I know like I'm an East Coast guy. So like I like some of these first quarter bets on the late games because I can go to bed then. So like I like Porzingis over 4.5 first quarter points. They don't have Zubac in this game. He's been really, really good lately to start games. I know he's on the report, so maybe he doesn't play. If not, obviously we get a void. But he's been cooking. He scored 8+ in 6 straight first quarters. He's hit this mark in 68% of games. He's averaging 6.2 first quarter points. Without Zoo, they're going to start Mo Bamba, which is just like Swiss cheese for Kristaps Porzingis. So when Bamba started last game, Vucevic scored 5 first quarter points on 2 of 4 shooting. I think that Porzingis can easily replicate that performance and go over the 4.5 points. So I like Porzingis in the first quarter. Now, does anybody, before we get everybody out of here, I know these games are about to start soon. I know we got some good comments here. We got somebody saying I'm NBA Jesus, which feels a little sacrilegious. But at the same time, we'll take it. We appreciate that. But does anybody have any questions real quick before we get you guys out of here? I know that there was some stuff that me and Watts had been kind of kicking the can around on, trying to see, what, if there were any props, any different angles that we're going to try to exploit here. But Andrew, I know one of the plays that I like sometimes, I like to do these 100 points in the first 3 quarters. Do you think of that as, I know you're not always a totals guy, do you think of that as like an adequate way to maybe kind of bet into a blowout or a game that you think could be a blowout because of the ability to put up that many points that fast?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't bet those ones a lot. But I think that's a great philosophy for a blowout for sure. I mean, if it's going to be a blowout, it's probably because one team's getting to a number pretty quickly. And when you see, sometimes you see these, like, I don't know, there was a 75-point halves, right, getting thrown out there. I think that can be a great way to find value on blowouts, because it's going to be hard to cap games that end up being a blowout. You don't really know when it's going to go off the rails, and so that's a good angle for sure. I know you like those. What are your thoughts on those kind of?
I think they're fun. I think they're fun. I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the matchup, but you definitely want to get some opportunity for some of the players or for some of the teams that can really put up some numbers. So I do see a question here. I joined late. Any ladder players or underdogs you like on the money line tonight for some fun sprinkles? So I gave out a parlay a little bit earlier. I like Tyus Jones to go up the ladder in terms of his assists and to get a double-double. If you build it out, 10 points, 10 assists on FanDuel is like 20, plus 2080. So that's great. And then Andrew also likes an underdog. He likes, well, I'll let him talk about it, but he was talking about the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, a super long shot, but I got a 150 on the Pistons. If you even want to do that uber long shot, what I've been kind of messing around with a little bit is the alt spread for the Pistons or for the dogs to get even more juice. Because here's the thing, like when these teams win, they don't win by one, right? Rarely do they win by 1 point. So you might as well, if they're up late, it goes to fouls. You're gonna, a lot of these games end on like 4, 5, 6 points. So I think there's a minus 3.5 for the Pistons out there, and that's at like, I want to say, let me find one of these real quick. That's at like plus 170 something. Let me just verify here. Yeah, so minus 3.5. Oh man, I gotta do this. Minus 3.5 is plus 220 for the Pistons. Minus 2.5 plus 185. You could find, like, if you want to do a little bit extra long shot or throw it in a parlay with one of Joe's double doubles. Yeah, I like that a lot.
No, I think it's definitely a good angle. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you. I love the confirmed participation here. It's definitely some fun over there. And this is going to be a great day. This is going to be a great show. Andrew, let everybody know where to find you. And we'll get everybody out of here.
Yeah. At NBA Watts on Twitter. I post plays in the Action app. And those are the main places to find me.
All right. And you can find me at Joe Delera. I'm in the Action app. I also am the host of the Cash That podcast. You can get that wherever you stream podcasts. And you can also join my Dub Club in the Huddle. So you can get that. I always post. We always have a link. You hit me up, send me a DM. I'll get you a little coupon to get in there if you're not in there already. So it's been a pleasure. Andrew, thank you to Rithmm for sponsoring the show, for powering the show. This was an awesome debut episode of Coast to Coast. And we are super excited to get into the slate and for us to see you and continue to cash that.
So see you next Wednesday, guys.